and welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and we're doing it live once again from the Chop. As you guys know, many developments happening down here, and today we're happy to bring you some actual clips of what's going on in the town. Let me throw it over to my guy. Gotta give it to him. Man, what's up, Big O?
Oh, man, I'm out here today. The sun came out, so I'm out here in my Bahama Breeze style. A lot of people are like, Big O, man, what's up with your self-care? You know what I'm saying? You're always, and so, I even got my flip-flops on here today because I'll be honest with you, all this walking I do, man, these dogs be barking.
Hey.
You know what I'm saying? But it's good to be back out here again. It's another day in the saga of Chop, but there's a lot of other stuff that's going on in the city. And one of the things that we want to be able to do, we thought we were going to be able to have our first episode today, but it looks like we're going to have to reschedule with King County Equity Now, is our community voices. Because, we got a lot of footage and coverage here from the Capitol Hill organized protests, as they call it now. And we've been able to speak. We talked to somebody from the organization, one person or another, every day. But there's other community groups, you know what I'm saying, ranging from King County Equity Now to different, all kinds of other people who also have demands on the city and also have, the things that they're wanting. And so, in being giving our viewers the broadest view possible, we're going to be leaving the Chop and actually be doing our community voices stuff. But hopping right into the headlines, first thing up here is from our partners at the South Seattle Emerald. And what they're talking about there, that means you, Daryl. South Seattle Emerald. And what the guy said there, what they're talking about is Governor Inslee is talking about putting us in the time travel machine and taking everybody back. Apparently, man, it's been all bad with COVID, and he very well might mandate mask use across the state of Washington. We all know that King County had applied for phase 2, but according to the governor, King County and all those guys over there on the east side, man, we're talking about Yakima County, Franklin County, Benton County. For you guys that didn't pass Washington State history with an A like me, then that means Franklin County, we're talking about Pasco. Benton County, you're talking about Kennewick and Richmond, basically the Tri-Cities and Yakima. COVID is like, man, it's doing its thing over there. And so the governor is talking about taking a step back, taking the people a step back and mandating masks. And what are your thoughts on that?
Wow. I mean, there's a lot of people who have had many, many discussions around mask use and us being careful. I mean, you can see, from a lot of the footage, and you've been out here, it's hard to socially distance when, literally you're up against folks and trying to, peacefully protest. And so we've seen that. We've seen these mass numbers come out, and I think that a lot of folks were wondering if there was going to be a spikes in cases. So I'm not surprised by this. I'm not surprised that we might need to take a step back. I mean, the thing is that I think a lot of people ready to get back to, normal, and we, you can't rush any of that.
Yeah, and the thing is too as well is so what we're transitioning to is we're going to start carrying masks. We want to be able to do our part. We interview a lot of people, and some people are in mask and they interview in mask, and but we're going to start carrying masks as well. The production crew when we're out here, so we can offer people masks, especially if we're going to be interviewing them. We were doing that before, and then it's kind of like, it's kind of hectic out here sometimes.
Yeah.
But we want to be able to do our part and set the best example and everything. You know what I'm saying? And even when we're here, we're socially distanced. We used to be much closer back in the day, but before COVID and everything else. Another thing, though, speaking and keeping it on COVID right here, another thing at the South Seattle Emerald is they have their guide of how to thrive during COVID, especially for people in South Seattle. You know what I'm saying? Where it's a lot of resources and everything else. And a lot of times, early on, actually the morning show started. This show actually started not because of Chop or Chaz, but because of COVID, we started this show because we wanted to be able to give people, especially in our neighborhood, the Central District.
Yeah.
But then, I guess you would say people of color or whatever across the city,
global majority
to be able to give them more information specifically about COVID. And so there at the South Seattle Emerald, they have a whole guide there of how to thrive, especially if you live in South Seattle.
I love that. You know what I mean? That's really what independent media has the opportunity to do. It's, you speak to your community, you speak to the constituents that are consuming your media, and it really allows for a more personalized message. That's really what Converge was about and has been about. So I love that, that Converge can move in, and South Seattle Emerald is holding it down for South Seattle. And also, I just got to say, I know we talked about it yesterday, but this partnership with Converge and the Emerald, South Seattle Emerald, that is huge, man. So shout out to that team and to making it happen for the folks, because we know that we do so much better together. I love that.
Right, and you can find out more about those stories and a whole lot more by visiting the website, southseattleemerald.com, and, of course, across social media, South Seattle Emerald. The next story is yesterday, man, the Martin Luther King County Labor Council voted. And they voted the SPOG. It's lots of acronyms around here these days. The SPOG is the Seattle Police Officers Guild, or some people might say the Officers Union. But they're a guild, union. I know there's a difference. I'm going to get stuff on Twitter and everything else. But, man, they got voted out. There was a big rally that was here yesterday, and a lot of people who are on the different unions that represent the council, they were like, man, we don't want the police in the council because they don't represent our values. And apparently – The Labor Council had been in some discussions with the SPOG and saying, like, man, you guys need to come out and make a firm commitment against being an anti-racism force and X, Y, and Z. We're actually interviewing somebody this afternoon that could give the in-depth analysis. So I'm just hitting the surface here. I don't know if Daryl already played that segment or not, but okay. But you can find the article that we highlighted there is on the Crosscut, which is another Seattle-based newspaper. You can find more information about it. But, it's been a very interesting week for the Seattle police. Earlier this week, the city banned tear gas, banned pepper spray, banned projectiles. Then, in another bill, they banned the chokehold. A few days later, the SPD has now been kicked out of the MLK Labor Council, which somebody told me is the largest labor council in America.
Wow.
Yeah, and like that. So, yeah, it's a lot going on with the police this week.
And honestly, I think it's a real sentiment of the people. Ultimately, that's what you're seeing in a lot of those decisions, is that folks are really calling to the table the values, you know what I mean? And if what you're not showing is the same set of values, then, yeah, we can't rock. At the end of the day, nobody really wants racism to flourish like that, in the open. So I think that's they're on point there.
Right.
Take note.
I don't have the exact number in front of me. I do. It's here in the phone, but I don't want to go and dig through it. But it's like 43,000 people voted to kick them out, and 34,000 to keep in. One of the arguments was that by keeping the police department in and keeping them there at the table, then it allows them within the organization to be able to work on issues and everything else. By kicking them out of the labor council, an opportunity for all these labor people who have all these resources and everything else and best practice, they're not able to work together. So, that's the flip side of it as well. But either way, it was big news yesterday. Apparently with that many members, it was a long roll count, to get every vote. But the Seattle Police Officers Guild is now out of the Martin Luther King County Labor Council.
It's huge news. And when you hear that those are the numbers and that many people really decided, it's better for us to not align ourselves with them. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people, want to change systems from the inside. I know that that's something that resonates in the Black community a lot when, for my generation, and they were training you to go to college, get your degree, get your job, this is how you build your career. So much of it was that, hey, we understand a lot of the systems we're going into may be inherently racist or prejudiced, but maybe our presence can make a difference. Maybe we can open that door for someone else. And so I see both sides of this issue for sure.
Right. The interesting side of it as well, just being objective, and that's why people kind of like, what I have to say is that what happens, though, when, let's say, some extremist group takes over some building and is holding people that you love and care about hostage, and now the police don't have tear gas to flush them out, or the police don't have non-lethals, to be able to whatever, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to always look at things from both sides. Yeah. So it's like, yeah. And I'm somebody who got tear gas. You guys saw it. I'm somebody who got tear gassed a lot of times. I ate a lot of pepper spray. I got hit with quite a few rubber bullets trying to cover this story. A lot of our staff, I always talk about Ben, the last night there protecting us, got shot with 5 rubber bullets and everything else. So I'm somebody who's ate the gas. I'm somebody who's, you know what I'm saying, ate the pepper spray, took the rubber bullets, but just thinking objectively on the flip side of the issue, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what if it was your loved one that like I said, was maybe being held hostage somewhere, and the police were trying to manage the situation in a non-lethal way, and now they don't have the tools to do that?
Yeah, it's a solid question. And I think that, a lot of this reform really needs to think about the end game and then work itself backwards. If the end game is to have a police department that understands its neighborhood, the community it's serving, understands the constituents it's serving in its beat or block, then again, those relationships are built. But also on the other side, you definitely have to have some more community response teams that can go into situations that are non-emergency situations and actually have de-escalation practices and techniques around, restorative justice, around mediation, things of that, dispute resolution. So I do think that there is a balanced approach that needs to happen here. You can't just say, we don't need the police to be doing this. We don't need them to have non-lethal force. We actually need to have some community responses that can take up that void.
I just think that no matter what, man, you know what I'm saying, whether either side, if we go too polarizing on either side, people need to understand that there's the laws of the universe, man. There's an equal opposite reaction, man. And when the pendulum goes too far one way, then it goes too far another way. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so it isn't until, because there's a lot of black people. Let's just be real. There's a lot of black people. You know what I'm saying? Who done went through redlining, gentrification, weed and seed, and everything else, who aren't happy about, you know what I'm saying, the police service. You know what and they want their police service. So there's not a homogeneous view of black people and this and that and everything else. A lot of people that precinct serves this precinct, or the units in the precinct, however it used to go, serves a lot of people there. And so we'll see how it plays out. But my job, my role here is to kind of ask those questions objectively, you know what I'm saying, like on both sides. So, it's a very valid question to say, like, okay, now a chokehold's crap. I think that everybody, let's get out of here, 100%. But I think that people might want to think about that if there's a situation that goes down and it's your people that's in there, would you want the police to have those kind of tools, tear gas and non-lethals, to be able to manage the situation, or does it come down to a lethal type of situation? You see what I'm saying? So something else, man, these guys, I don't know, we spend a lot of time talking about us. I guess we're conceited and self-centered here in Seattle, but about 176 miles down there to the south, Portland is funky. It's been funky. It stayed funky. We got a report right here from one of the channels in Portland, KOIN, and it shows how last night the protesters, for the 20th night, they took over the Pearl District. And actually, Portland police had a bit different of an approach than the guys in Seattle. They put up their autonomous zone there last night. It's not necessarily in this report. They put up the Keller Williams autonomous zone right out in front of the mayor's condo down there in Portland. But the police came in and smacked them quickly. It's a bit differently, though, because these guys left their precinct. But down in Portland, they tried to launch the autonomous zone. It didn't really last long, but, man, they're definitely on it. If you can go ahead and play that clip for us, Daryl.
Tonight have marched into the Pearl District. Jennifer Dowling with that group right now. Let's switch back to her. What's the latest, Jennifer?
Jeff, we're at Northwest 10th and Gleason, and it appears that a man just climbed up onto the awning, the cement awning there, and was kind of looking into windows, but he kind of went down the other side behind some trees. I'm not sure if he hopped down, but we did have a man that had climbed up there just a couple minutes ago. We have people who are filling the streets here kind of camped out for a time, chanting Ted Wheeler's name. Protesters believe that he lives in this building, and they are shining lasers on the side of it, as well as spotlights and what looks like strobe lights. We have seen quite a few people peeking out their windows, wondering initially what was going on. This group marched all the way from the Justice Center on the southwest side over here to the northwest side in the Pearl. Part of the reason the group was a little bit larger tonight at the Justice Center was because there was a peaceful protest on the east side, and they marched over the Hawthorne Bridge to the bowl on the waterfront and had speeches and wrapped up peacefully. And then quite a few people went over to the Justice Center to join people who were already there. So they marched out at around 10 o'clock. They marched up to 10th, Southwest 10th, and marched all the way to Northwest 10th here in Gleason, where they're targeting this building, chanting Ted Wheeler's name, chanting Black Lives Matter and other slogans. We just heard one of the leaders of the protest with a megaphone tell people to stay within the confines of the cars so they don't get injured. They also parted out of the way to let a streetcar through, so they did let the car through. It sounds like they just want to get their message out to Ted Wheeler.
The Rose City, man, I'm telling you, it's getting funky down there. It's been that way for a while, you know, and protests are really going on across the country, and you kind of see that on Twitch. I wasn't even hip to Twitch until we came over here, and somebody's like, man, you know, your live stream's on Twitch. It's like 100,000 people watching. And I was like, what? What's Twitch?
What is Twitch?
But Twitch, they put up on the page Woke. It's like twitch.com/woke. So Woke has all these feeds from across the country. And believe it or not, man, in cities all across America, you know, Wilmington, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, every night people are in the streets. You don't really see that because, you know, I mean, one, the national news might not have the bandwidth, you know, in a 30-minute show to show that. But they're out there. But Portland, man, you know, Portland's always been Portland. Yeah. And so, you know, their last night was their 20th night of protest.
Man, shout out to all of those who are just saying enough is enough. I mean, you know, I can't say it enough. I'm not going to ever be like, well, you know, no, this country has a lot of things to ask or answer for and answer to. And I think that the people are finally like, enough, man. It's time to get some answers. It's time to see some change. So I'm loving that. I'm loving that Woke is compiling these streams so that folks can actually see what's going on across the nation. My cousin lives in North Carolina and does not know about that. So I'm going to have to tell her about Woke. Man, shout out to you guys over there compiling those clips.
You know, what's crazy is our stream actually, because, you know, they have a lot of streams up there, but there's only one that has sound. But our stream, every time we go up there, because, you know, I got commentary. And so it's crazy because once they put our stream up, it usually goes into a prime position and you can hear the audio on it and everything else. So sometimes, you know, on Facebook, it'll say, like, we got 3,000, 5,000 people following. But through these syndicated feeds, sometimes there's over 100,000 people that are just following or walk through the park over here through CHOP, you know what I'm saying, which is interesting in itself. One last thing before we take a break. You eat pancakes?
Pancakes, flapjacks.
Flapjacks, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, man. I mean, the winds of change, at least for right now, is coming to America as another company, this time PepsiCo, one of the biggest companies in the world, you know, as far as like food, beverage, everything like that. They decided to change the name of Aunt Jemima syrup.
Wow. Long time that name been in the American public.
Yeah, it has, over a century. Daryl, can you roll that clip?
We have another big headline this morning. PepsiCo changing the name of its well-known Aunt Jemima brand. What can you tell us about that?
So PepsiCo, the parent company of Quaker, which owns the brand Aunt Jemima, and the brand has been around for 130 years, has decided that this is based on a racial stereotype, listening to calls to change that name over the last many years, and that name will change in the coming months. They say that they'll have new branding and new packaging before the end of this year.
So we just talk about, man, you know, people, even Miss Butterworth, like speaking in community-wise,
Right.
even Miss Butterworth used to always get some love because it's like, ooh, man, this Miss Butterworth. Nobody ever wanted to be Aunt Jemima.
No.
That used to be how you was ranking in the hood. That's why your mama looked like Aunt Jemima. Oh, we got to fight now. How you going to say my mama looked like Aunt Jemima? So she's never been like a positive symbol within the black community.
Absolutely
you know
not. And the thing is that honestly, it felt like to me always that I thought, oh, well, you know, maybe they think that's the best pancake mix and the best syrup ever because I'm trying to get it like, you know, like Aunt Jemima made it. I mean, like that's what I would always think.
What they were saying,
go back to those times.
What they were saying is that, you know, Aunt Jemima was based upon a person who was X, Y, and Z. But, man, Aunt Jemima was born into slavery, man.
Right. Exactly. Period.
So this is the time, though. So here's the thing is, apparently the trend that I'm seeing is like this is the time now if you want to hop on this on the bandwagon for change. Like you see NASCAR's come, they've banned this and that. University of Virginia, they're redoing their logo. PepsiCo's getting rid of Aunt Jemima. Trae said Uncle Ben is next. He said Uncle Ben is next. But really, to be honest with you, because, you know, corporations, especially if you're publicly held, you know what I'm saying, stepping out there without a situation like this into the winds of change. Imagine, you know, the blowback that PepsiCo would have got even a month ago.
Yeah.
When they're like, you know, or 2 months ago, before George Floyd, if PepsiCo was like, yeah, we're changing the name to Aunt Jemima because we feel that, you know, it might be offensive or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They might have took a hit on their stock. They might have took a this and that. But because of the current environment, it's like, man, that was a courageous move by PepsiCo or whatever. So anybody out there, man, if you got some other offensive stuff popping off, I'm letting you know this window might not last forever.
Hey.
If you've got some very insensitive kind of logo or anything like that, this might be the time.
I'm just going to say this. I think really what the term is awakening. Like everybody needs to get woke. Everybody needs to wake up and understand that there's a lot of that embed in our pop culture, in American culture. So it is going to be up to folks to be innovative. I've always said this in terms of pushing the barriers forward and changing that narrative. It's really going to be up to companies like Pepsi to do that because honestly, a lot of that stuff is rooted in some prejudices and some race. So we definitely need to take that out.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing is, too, is like, man, some stuff just don't have to be what it is.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, Seattle University changed their name, you know, well, maybe it was a decade ago or less. I think they used to be the Red Men.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? See, SU, we're just right down the street, and then, you know, they changed their name to the Red Hawks. You know, but this is, like I said, we're seeing something in America right now that we've never really seen before. And when people have had the conversations and dealt with things around race, although it's been polarizing, and there was no space or a thing about people saying it has to get better.
Yeah.
But I think that we find that right now in America, whether people are falling on, they said, the right side of issues or the left side of issues, people are feeling like something has to change.
Right.
And that's why you're seeing, you know, these things. Also, another thing, we don't have the package in here today, but Roger Goodell said that Kaepernick, somebody should hire Kaepernick. And I don't really know what's going on, but Trump said Kaepernick should get another try. So,
wow.
You know what I'm saying? Trump said a lot of other stuff,
yeah,
too,
he
by
definitely
the way.
did.
But
definitely
we're just talking about Kaepernick right now.
Definitely did.
But,
well,
I mean,
I just was going to say that I think you are right. When we talk about the sentiment of this nation and we talk about this people power, how we're seeing folks rise up just like they've done here in the CHOP, I think that is really the sentiment that is sweeping the nation. You know what I mean? Even right here locally, you know, to be fighting for Fire Station 6 for almost 5 years and finally being like, you know what, we understand, it's right, we need to do this for community. At the end of the day, this awakening is sweeping the nation. I'm loving this, to be honest.
I mean, but
it's
you
about
know,
time.
Fundamentally, what I've been saying for a long time is that whether you fall on the right or the left, or really it's about 30 or 50 different ways to split this, man. This country is built upon the citizens being engaged.
Yes.
It really, this country is built upon we the people. And for a long time, you know, people have outsourced their responsibility. People have outsourced their responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what we see. And right now, I think citizens across America are like, you know what? I'm reclaiming my responsibility as a citizen here. People
Yes.
put because you know with simple civics, there's rights and responsibilities that you have as an American citizen. Every single citizen here is a stakeholder.
Yep.
But they don't realize it. And even more than a stakeholder, there's a shareholder. There's 350 million shareholders in this big company or organization that we call the United States of America. And a lot of times people just put their shares in America with some hedge fund and just let the hedge fund manage their share.
Right.
I mean, if you put it in a business sense, and now people are taking that share back and being like, nah, man, I'm good. Let me manage this myself. Because, you know what I'm saying, any change, as people see it, comes from the citizen level. And guys really ought to be ashamed of themselves that for years they put that share, their responsibility on autopilot.
Yes.
Oh, who do we, you know, it's the day that they get to the election day. Oh, who do we vote for this time? You know, honey,
Right.
what box do we check? And it just go on.
Right.
It's been outsourced. So I think a lot of what you're seeing right now across America is people reclaiming, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love
reclaiming that right and their responsibility and their duty. You're obligated as an American citizen. You're obligated to be involved in the process. It don't matter if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. You're obligated. You're a shareholder. You're a stakeholder in this thing we call America, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why these things are important. Get out there, vote, do your census. You know what I'm saying? Make noise. Look how much noise the politicians, they've never heard this much noise.
Never.
They've never heard this much noise from people on either side of this issue. So politicians, you know what I'm saying, from the local level, the city, the county, the state, and federally, man, people, big business has never heard this much from people. So guys are acting. But that's because citizens are becoming engaged again and doing their job. You see, it's not the government's country; it's the people's country.
You
see what I'm saying?
What you're
it's
saying.
what it is.
I
man.
absolutely agree. You know, I always talk about the importance of people power, the importance of people recognizing that power, and I love how you just said that it's them taking their share back. I think that there was a lot of things in this country in terms of systemically that were built on the apathy of the people, that were built on this autopilot nature of the people. And I do think,
Right city
and
hall, right city.
Yeah, it's like it does make a difference. And I think that when you utilize your voice in the ways that we're seeing people utilize their voices across this country, across the world, I mean, we've been inspired by other movements as folks in Hong Kong have been lifting their voices up. We are getting inspired. I think we're seeing it happen. I think it's beautiful to actually witness it right here in our city.
Right. So what we're going to do right now, I didn't realize, man, time's getting away for us. We got a late start here today. You know what I'm saying? Live TV isn't always perfect, but we appreciate you guys supporting us. So Nightline, ABC Nightline, they put a camera crew. They embedded a camera crew with us a few days ago. And they actually flew back yesterday, and they did some follow-up. They did an interview with Fire Chief Scoggins and Mayor Durkin. But the segment aired last night on Nightline. So we're going to jump ahead in the order there, Daryl. We're going to go to the Nightline. So what we're going to do is we jacked it. We didn't get total permission yet, but it's okay. Sometimes it's better to ask for permission than, you know. But we're going to play this, and we want you guys to tell us how good or how bad ABC News and Nightline, you know what I'm saying, captured their time in the chop, embedded with us at ConvergeMedia. We're going to go up here.
4 blocks up, barely that far across. And in this stretch of Seattle, citizen journalist Omari Salisbury enters occupied territory.
Every day at like 3 o'clock, you get there's a lot of different community meetings. It's a lot of discussion about what this thing is going to be.
This afternoon, many feeling validated by the breaking news.
The first charge is felony murder.
The former Atlanta officer who shot and killed Rayshard Brooks last Friday was charged with 11 counts, including murder and aggravated assault.
They should be charged because there's always a better way.
That makes me feel good. And that's all we want is justice.
Blue streets.
This is CHOP.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now.
The Capitol Hill occupied protest. A self-described autonomous zone, a piece of city taken, sealed off from outsiders by barricades and patrolled by armed residents.
The guy with the Glock is running.
It's a place where no cops are allowed. An area those inside say is for the people, by the people.
In the last few weeks, we've made quite a movement, haven't we?
It's just blocks from downtown and some of the homes of corporate titans like Amazon and Starbucks.
It's just about 6 square blocks, but it also encompasses Cal Anderson Park, which is a big park over here, and of course the East Precinct, which is the point of contention.
Tonight, we take you inside the zone that's been described at times as an occupation. Hey, critics calling it a street fair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Others a protest rally.
If you're not willing to go that far, then what are you doing down here?
One that after nearly 10 days still has a police precinct building under its control.
The East Precinct will not be returned.
The faces of those who lost their lives at the hands of police now adorn the police precinct's boarded up windows. And organizers here vow to hold the precinct at least until their demands are met.
It's defunding and abolishment of the police state and having police officers turn in their badges.
It was nearly 3 weeks ago when Seattle joined cities across the country protesting the death of George Floyd at the hands of police.
Let's bring this down.
Protesters taking their anger to the East Precinct in the Capitol Hill neighborhood, where the standoffs were some of the most explosive in the country. Officers using tear gas, flashbang grenades, and pepper spray.
They're putting the pepper spray in the air. There it is.
This viral moment live streamed by Salisbury.
I got pepper spray all over me.
Demonstrators facing a wall of officers across a barricade.
All hell broke loose. Tear gas and pepper spray, and I think they broke out the rubber bullets, and it shocked this neighborhood.
Days later, another intense police crackdown. And tensions heightened as a man drove his car into a crowd of protesters before shooting and injuring one of them. Then, in a bid to de-escalate tensions, officers retreated from the area, vacating the East Precinct. That void quickly filled by protesters who would declare the area theirs.
This building is the people's. We paid for it with our taxes.
Leaving the precinct was not my decision. You fought for days to protect it. I asked you to stand on that line, day in and day out.
The situation in Seattle now a national flashpoint. The president himself warning multiple times he would take action, like in this Fox News interview.
It's pathetic. No, we're not going to let this happen in Seattle. If we have to go in, we're going to go in.
Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin firing back.
One of the things this president will never understand is that listening to community is not a weakness.
On the ground, Omari has found himself moving from journalist to arbiter, bridging the divide between protesters and officials.
They know, because people know it's like we're not on the side of protesters, we're not on the side of police, we're just media people who actually build a lot of relationships.
Share the stream.
After his videos of the protest caught the attention of city leaders, he began hosting community meetings like this one with Harold Scoggins, the chief of the Seattle Fire Department, who seemed to meet some of the protesters' demands.
Requiring body-worn cameras recording at protest. That's a change that has been made. In no way do I imagine that this comes close to meeting all of the concerns and needs. But in the conversation, one of the things we're trying to do is understand how we serve the business owners, how do we serve the residents.
And amid the stalemate between police and city government over the fate of the vacated precinct, Scoggins served as an intermediary to build trust.
I was African American before I ever put my first uniform on. So all of our personal experiences inform our decision making. We're also focusing on serving the protesters and trying to ensure that they have a safe space to express their First Amendment rights. People want and need to have a voice.
Mayor Durkin refusing for now to take back the streets and downplaying the symbolism of the precinct's takeover.
The precinct itself is just the building. Our focus is on how do we make sure that policing adapts to the situation. The chief made very clear that policing will never be the same in Seattle or across America.
It's not a protest. I call it Burning Man, a festival. It has nothing to do with Black lives or what happened to George Floyd.
Victoria Beach chairs the police department's African American Community Advisory Council. She says the mayor's stance is giving license to a lawless party.
And the mayor did it. I said the longer they have these streets, the harder it is to get it back. And she needs to be in the front line taking it back.
Other protesters here are frustrated by the lack of progress and clarity in the movement, like bookkeeper Sean Gaston.
We don't march no more, and we're not saying nothing beneficial. There's a whole bunch of people out here.
What is the message here right now?
There is no message.
Even the name has been a point of contention. First, it was the CHAZ, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. But after some people raised issues with that moniker, it was changed to the CHOP.
I don't know how Capitol Hill became the center focus of this. Capitol Hill is not the black community. The black community is 6 blocks up the street and to the left, all right? That's the black community. That's where we need to be at. We're standing outside here in front of a police station. What type of message is that sending? It looks like buffoonery.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now.
The Key Award brought together black artists in Seattle to create a street mural, like those now seen in so many streets across the country.
We came out and we laid down all the lettering. We want to make sure that black artists are represented and heard with this piece.
Those 3 words, a reminder of why many say they'll continue raising their voices.
What I want to see is the system that allows for black people to be murdered and there be no accountability. I want that system gone. That's what I want.
For Nightline, I'm Matt Gutman in Seattle.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Ah,
hey, Mama, good after
that was good. That was good. Thank y'all.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for the heads up, Daryl. So, I mean, it's 7 minutes right there. That was the clip that aired on ABC News Nightline last night. They had a camera crew come up and they embedded with us. Some of the interviews in there were interviews that were taken early on. I think when he talked to Gaston, Gas. We actually had an interview with Gas. He's from the North End. Said he lives out there on Aurora, near the precinct on the north end, and he was just telling us about what's going on out there. We're actually reporting back on that. But so some of the footage was from their previous reporting, some of the footage from like me and Takaya.
Takaya.
From who did who painted the 2 T's on the mural, and then also some other stuff, with the chief or whatever. But it's interesting to know, you know what I'm saying? How do you guys, especially guys that have been out here at the CHOP and everything else, how do you guys feel about that ABC piece? Did they get it, or what was right, or what was wrong? You know what I'm saying, or is it on point?
Well, hey, man, at the end of the day, I think it was great that they came out to really see for themselves on the ground. I think a lot of media groups have been doing that, trying to really get the story from the ground. We also had a guy with us from USA Today that did a pretty good piece on, just kind of the overall feel of the CHOP and just kind of the feel of this movement in general.
It was a long,
and it was great in general in terms of like capturing this movement. I think that also too, what a lot of the media is speaking to, even for me getting questions, I think a lot of it is that people really want to know how people are feeling out here. I think that there's been such a misnomer about the narrative with major media and so much wanting to sensationalize the stories down here. It wasn't focusing on this kind of leveling that was happening at a time down here in the CHOP. And I think that, I shout out to all of the reporters and media groups who are really looking to not sensationalize this story and to really focus on the movement, focus on the swell and the energy that's happening. And I got to give a shout out to them.
And one thing that I can say, we'll see what the viewers think about ABC's coverage, because this is good, but in the sense that we're able to see the coverage from beginning to end. Yeah. In USA Today, we happened to bump into him, and do was this Trevor Hughes. Trevor Hughes is the writer from USA Today. And we you know what I'm saying, we just kind of tagged along with each other for a good part of the day. But ABC specifically sent the crew out here to not only just follow us, but to get a story. But one thing I can say is whether they got some things right or some things wrong, I don't think they sensationalized it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't sensational, like, oh, man, you know, here it is. It's crazy. And that's a lot of what we've been seeing from national and international media to see who can get the biggest headline or the biggest views. They didn't sensationalize a lot of stuff.
And you got to give it up to them, because that's what I mean. I think what we saw in the beginning was a swell of sensationalism. And what I'm seeing
it's
now,
still out there.
no, but what I'm seeing now locally, right, is, you know, folks that are local really wanting to understand what is being done on the other side of all of this. How is the energy moving? How are communities responding, right? I think that that's really important to try to tell this story from a holistic viewpoint.
Right. I think we have a clip here. We're up against the clock, so we're going to get out of here shortly. But I think we have a clip here. This is from Cairo last night. It's a very short clip. They're talking about, once again, protesters getting onto the I-5 and going downtown, everything else. They're on the I-5. They blocked traffic for about 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's about the time of the tape, the George Floyd tape. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Let's play this clip. We'll talk about it on the other side.
For the third night in a row, protesters have made their way onto I-5 to shut it down. The group gained access just north of Pine Street and then moved over the barrier extending to both sides of the freeway. That closure lasted for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. Of course, the same amount of time a police officer's knee was on George Floyd's neck when he died. Protesters tell Cairo 7 they plan to continue those shutdowns every night.
So, you know, there's a group that actually, they come from here, you know, out of the CHOP. So I'm not saying that they're CHOP occupants, but, you know, this is a rallying point. They march downtown to the precinct on Virginia and then also stop there on I-5. And, you know, for them, you know, it's a lot of different ideologies that are out here, which is, you know, I guess this is how things like this evolve and formulate. Because, so that's a group, they say that their aim is disruption. They're like, man, we disrupt things every day until, you know, in a way that isn't like, you know, violent or whatever, but they want to disrupt things every day to continue to get their message apart. Then you got other people who are policy wonks. Like, man, I'm not disrupting anything. We're going to write the best legislation or whatever. Then you got, you know, people who are like, man, just by occupying the space. It's, you know, so, but that particular group, every day they go downtown. They go down to the precinct down there in South Lake Union, and they get on the 5, which, I mean, getting on a freeway anywhere in America could clearly be dangerous. But, you know what I'm saying? This is what they're doing there every day.
You know, you guys hear me say it all the time. I always give shout out to people who are actually, like you said, taking their share back and doing something about it. If they're unhappy with the way this country is ran, or this town, or this state, or this city, whatever it is, this county, right, whatever it is, if they're just unhappy with the way that things are, it is up to them to say something about it. So shout out to all the factions that you just mentioned. I think it does definitely take all sides, right? You do need to have, and I've been saying Killer Mike's quote makes the most sense to me, because you need to have all of this mobilization and movement move into something that's going to be sustainable and move into something that creates real change. And so shout out to all the groups who are just like, yep, we need real change, and they're pushing for it.
All right, speaking of real change, one thing the residents, at least some of the residents of CHOP want, is a real change on the volume levels, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, one thing that we saw yesterday, I talked to Jamie from over at 12th Avenue Arts. They gave us a letter over there signed by over 40 residents. And I think what the CHOP people with the CHOP need to understand is it's like, man, people in this neighborhood, at least what I've been reporting, a lot of people in this neighborhood are like, okay, man, we're going to support you. It's Cap Hill. We got gas, too. Went into the house and all that. But there has to be a coexistence. And so the guys over at 12th Avenue Arts, they wrote a letter that was 90%. Like, you know, man, the police did this. Tear gas came into our house. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of mobility challenged people that live in 12th Avenue Arts. You know what I'm saying? They're like, man, we didn't necessarily have a dog in that fight. We were just sitting in our apartment, and we got gas in our apartments and X, Y, and Z. And they came out with a lot of language, you know, kind of against the SPD and in full support of the CHOP. But they're telling the people of the CHOP, they're like, look, man, our people need access. First responders need to get in and out because they have a lot of people who have health challenges that live in the building. And their third thing is, it's like, man, you got to turn the noise down some. And so, you know, I mean, and these are the same people in their letter to the police who was like, man, the flashbangs was crazy for them, the explosions, the late night, and everything else. We monitored the music last night at 11 o'clock. It kind of came down, but then it went back up by the time we were done shooting closer to midnight. And there's a lot of reporting, not only for us, but, you know, like King 5 put out a good one yesterday. It's a few other stations where they're talking to neighbors here in the neighborhood. And, I mean, everybody has a tolerance level. Everybody has, you know what I'm saying, a breaking point. And so, I mean, that's another now point on the chop is how well are they going to manage their relationship with the people who live in the neighborhood?
You know, it's so great that you mentioned Jamie, and I think you're so right. One of the things that I really respected about Jamie and our conversation was really that he was like, wow, you know, the police basically accosted those residents to come in and out of that building. And he told me particularly that it was the first time that he really experienced that type of attention and energy from the police. And so he and I bonded. Jamie is a white man, okay? He and I bonded over this because he literally said to me, wow, it was in that moment that I was being targeted in that regard. Like, they were basically in their own riot gear, you know, really policing people as they were coming in and out of that building. They were trying to get people to stay inside. They didn't want them to come out. He said he had never experienced that, and it really allowed him to have even more sympathy and empathy regarding the issues that Black people face. And so he and I connected on such a deep level in terms of understanding that now when you experience something that Black folks in this country and others have really dealt with on a day-to-day basis, that is the thing that wakes you up the most. And so I just want to say shout out to Jamie for really organizing the building. He, you know, thank you for understanding King County Equity Now might be a way to go. But I really think that it's allies like him who said, look, I can't stand by this injustice. Let me organize my building. Let me spread that message across through CHOP. I'm a resident here, and I understand the issues even more now because of my own experience with the police. Those are the things to me that really, really bring about real change, because Jamie will never be the same after that experience. Jamie will always remember that feeling and how he was like, wow, is this what people who don't look like me experience every day? I think that is what a lot of people that are from the global majority wish that their white brothers and sisters understood, right? Or started to begin to understand. So shout out to you, Jamie. It was a great discussion. I look forward to, you know, chopping it up with you more in the chop.
Yeah. So, I mean, from my perspective, I didn't bond with Jamie. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my issue with him is whether he's white or Black or anything else, you know what I'm saying? But we always see things, you know, in two different perspectives, which is okay. You know, for me, it's all about news and information. And I know for you, you know what I'm saying, it's a bit of a different angle of everything else. But that's what makes our show kind of cool. Yeah. So I didn't bond with Jamie, but I did read his letter back to him before I released it. I said, I want to be sure that this is exactly what you're saying and exactly whatever else. Yep. And, you know, I mean, one thing I can say and what I've been saying is a lot of this protest is fueled. One thing I can agree with you on, although you said it differently than I'm going to say it, is that there's a lot of people who, when it got funky out here on the Western Barricade, who couldn't believe that this was their country.
Yes.
They were like, I can't believe this is happening here, or at least not in my neighborhood. Or, yeah, well, I saw that kind of in Ferguson, the coverage where they had the big SWAT and there was gas. But people on Capitol Hill, a lot of people had never seen anything like this before.
Yes.
And so I will say that experience that people had during the Western Barricade changed them. And also, like I said, there was a lot of people who were indifferent. They were just sitting there, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they might have been watching our morning show, you know, way back when. Gas is coming through their window. You know, the kids, I mean, you got to imagine as a parent, you know what I'm saying, when you're kids, especially small kids, you're sitting there at home, man, minding your own business, and then the tear gas comes through the window, and your kids are smelling tear gas, or they're inhaling this spray, and whatever that spray was that last night that they put out there, because it wasn't quite tear gas, it wasn't quite pepper spray. We don't know what it was. Well, I inhaled a lot of that too. You know what I'm saying? My vision still ain't right from that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm supposed to go see an optometrist here, man, because I had so much tear gas in my eyes and everything else. And so what we did see here, you know what I'm saying, is that we saw a group of people who never thought that this was their America.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? It's a lot of people who never imagined, you know, in a residential neighborhood of what occurred. And so we see that there. So, you know, I mean, from a news perspective, that's the news, 12th Avenue Arts. They're saying that they support the CHOP, but the CHOP got to bring the noise down. And you know what I'm saying? If the CHOP is really going to last here, they're going to have to figure out a way to coexist, especially with their neighbors, and especially their neighbors that are supportive. You know what I'm saying? Everything is compromised. And right now, you know, guys are, you know, you definitely got to be able to compromise with people who support you.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you can't compromise with people who support you, then if you go to bargain with other people who don't necessarily support you, then they're going to feel that, you know, it's disingenuous.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, guys want you to turn the music down.
Yeah.
At 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning, maybe you should turn the music down.
Right. And I think that you're so right in terms of coexisting. That is going to be important if the survival of the CHOP or just the occupation, right, in general. If that's to take place and continue on, you're right. They need to find a way to coexist.
All right, so that's it for us right now. A programming note, we got Good Game Alert with Mr. Willard Jimerson. He's going to be broadcasting live right here from the CHOP. Hope we got all these creative people on set today, so maybe we can create some kind of funky setup for Willard. We might do it down there in the Black Lives Matter or up top, you know what I'm saying, the East Precinct or whatever. 6:30 today live. We got Good Game Alert. Then, of course, we'll be out there talking and streaming later. And because we're going to be here throughout the day, I think we'll be doing interviews like our short 2-minute Twitter interviews, just man in the street and stuff like that, and woman.
Nice.
And
you're good. You're good.
I got to learn all of that.
Yeah, you're good.
But any last words before we get out of here?
You know what? Just keep up the fight, y'all. You know, I'm really excited for Juneteenth tomorrow. Shout out to all of those who've been working on Juneteenth planning. There's a lot of events going on. So I'm just excited. That's going to be a real day of celebration.
20 seconds or less. You want to share any event information for tomorrow?
Oh, well, I do know that there will be a march starting at 22nd and Madison in front of D. Charlene's salon. It's going to be exciting because D. Charlene, let me just say this, and I was going to save it for tomorrow, but I will do it again. I'll do it twice. Maybe we can bring Rita on, her daughter, tomorrow maybe, because D. Charlene was the one who brought Juneteenth to Seattle. So we want to give a shout out to that legacy, a shout out to our black community, and it's going to be time to celebrate tomorrow. So there's a march, 22nd and Madison, starting at 2 o'clock. Come on down. There's going to be some stops along the way as we move south down 23rd to really educate folks. So we don't just march. We march and we educate, we teach, we move forward with strategy. So I'm excited for that.
All right. It was a long 20 seconds, by the way. But, yeah, I mean, we'll definitely put out some information across our platforms as far as Juneteenth celebrations. And I actually got a clip I already found. It's about 4 minutes long. It explains Juneteenth and everything else for people who want to understand that. Also, we'll be reporting from over here, man. You know, we see that. I'm going to save it for the live stream, man, because they're talking about it's a blackout over here tomorrow. It's some other stuff. But you know what? We never leave people in an affected state. And we're getting ready to get out of here. And the best thing is, since we've relocated over here to the CHOP, we're already standing. We'll catch you back on the morning update show tomorrow at 11 a.m. Again, tonight at 6:30 p.m. It's Good Game Alert. And then, of course, we'll be streaming our walk through the CHOP, so to speak, after that. So until then, this is Omari.
And Treyana.
It's the morning update show. We gone. Peace.
Every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory.